I'm sick of mincing words on this. This Russian phone call that leaked is one of the most traitorous things I have ever heard. Just to run you up to speed, Donald Trump's special envoy, his foreign policy advisor, Steve Witkoff, was just caught yesterday advising Russian officials on how to manipulate Donald Trump into accepting a peace deal. This peace deal is essentially a Russian wish list. The only thing is, Steve Witkoff himself was the one getting manipulated by the Russians in this entire scenario, meaning the Trump administration was getting manipulated by Russia. We knew that. We didn't need an article to tell us that. But this new report shows us that Witkoff was so deeply embedded in it that honestly, he should be tried for treason. Witkoff advised Russia on how to pitch Ukraine plan to Trump. This is one of the craziest articles ever. And when Donald Trump was asked about it, he decided to double down. Here's a sequence of events. Vladimir Putin's takeover of the United States was not some secret spy thriller or James Bond movie. He quite literally just manipulated Donald Trump's closest envoy, Steve Witkoff, and when they got exposed, they had two options. Either come out and say, Steve Witkoff is inexperienced, he messed up, and he got manipulated, or they come out and they double down and they say this was part of the plan the entire time. Well, guess what? They did the second one. The Trump administration is claiming this was part of the plan the entire time. This 28-point peace plan is the best they can offer, even though it is just a pro-Russia wish list that screws over Ukraine's sovereignty. Now, Steve Witkoff, who was caught on this leaked Kremlin call, is now reported to be visiting Russia next week to close the loop on things. So we currently have a pro-Russia administration negotiating an end to this war, but they're quote-unquote end to this war will only be a short-term plan that will, in the long term, lead to more and more war, because that is Vladimir Putin's entire strategy. He starts a war, he pauses that war when it's convenient for him politically or economically, then he reignites that war down the road. Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff, and everybody in this cabinet, they don't understand Vladimir Putin's true intentions, which is why after we read this article in 1 second, I'm going to go through some of these videos, and you'll see Colin says, Steve Witkoff is now a legitimate threat to world peace. This is the equivalent of a British diplomat secretly working with Hitler during the Nazi bombing of London. Treason. Ted Lieu says, actual traitor. Steve Witkoff is supposed to work for the United States, not Russia. Christopher Miller points out, remarkable story. Stunning stuff, even if it is what we've come to expect from Witkoff. Here, he explicitly advises Russian officials how Putin should deal with Trump and also shows a staggering, fundamental misunderstanding of Putin's goals and the war. This entire administration thinks Putin just wants some sort of land deal, that Putin's just a rational businessman who wants a little bit of land. No. Putin is a craven dictator who wants to take over surrounding territories and will not stop until the former USSR is restored. He doesn't just want some real estate swap like Trump thinks. He's not just looking for some new building that he can build. This dude will kill women, children. This dude will kill anybody for his imperial ambitions, and it's disgusting. Adam Mockler points out, wow, the leaked call logs show both that 1, Witkoff committed treason by advising Russia how to get their way by outmaneuvering Trump. So he's pro-Russia. He's not America first. He's not Ukraine first. He's not humanity first. He's just pro-Russia. He's Russia first. And the peace proposal was authored and sent by the Russians, meaning Vance, Rubio, and Witkoff have all lied about its origin. Donald Trump gets asked about this on Air Force One. He says this.
They're losing too many people.
Have you heard this audio that Bloomberg has of Witkoff coaching the Russians on how to appeal to you?
Well, I haven't heard it, no, but that's a standard thing, because he's got to sell this to Ukraine. He's got to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's what a deal maker does. You got to say, look, they want this. You got to convince them with this. That's a very standard form of negotiation. I haven't heard it, but I heard it was standard negotiation. And I would imagine he's saying the same thing to Ukraine, because each party has to give and take.
Except that's not what's happening. Steve Witkoff wasn't trying to sell a deal to Russia. He wasn't trying to sell a deal to Ukraine. He was coaching Russia on how to sell a deal to Donald Trump that only benefited Russia. He was coaching Russia on how to sell this pro-Russia deal in such a way that seems pro-America. He is a Russian agent. I mean, let's read through some of this, and I still have more clips from Trump. He then gets asked about Witkoff being too pro-Russian, but first, I just want to make sure we understand what's happening here. U.S. presidential envoy Steve Witkoff held a phone call last month with a senior Kremlin official to suggest they work together on a similar plan for Ukraine as Gaza. I mean, just keep in mind, the Gaza peace plan, quote-unquote peace plan, fell apart in like 3 days. In an October 14th phone call that lasted a little over 5 minutes, Witkoff advised Yuri Yushkov, Putin's top foreign policy aide, on how the Russian leaders had broached the issue with Trump. His guidance included suggestions on setting up a Trump-Putin call right before Zelensky's White House visit later that week and using the Gaza agreement as a way in. So they undercut Zelensky's meeting with Trump and Zelensky's ability to get weapons by setting up a Putin phone call 5 minutes before that, quote-unquote, outmaneuvered Zelensky, but really, it's just being a traitor. It's just not being loyal. You're supposed to be loyal to your allies. Give them the first conversation, not Putin. Asked about Witkoff's approach, Trump said he hadn't reviewed the call, but heard it was standard negotiation. During his call with Yushkov, Witkoff told his Russian counterpart that he had deep respect for Putin, and that he had told Trump it was his belief Russia had always wanted a peace deal. I hate this line of thinking. It's not even thinking. There's no thinking involved. I hate when people say that Russia wants a peace deal too. Russia wants peace just as much as Ukraine. Motherfucker, Russia is the one who launched this invasion and who is making an active decision day by day to continue this invasion. Donald Trump then gets asked, are you worried that Steve Witkoff is too pro-Russia? What a dumb question. Trump isn't worried about anybody being too pro-Russia.
So you're worried that he's too pro-Russian?
No, I think, look, this war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, you know. So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing. I think it's great for both. Frankly, I think it's great for both. But Ukraine's got it's a much smaller group of people. They've lost a lot of people.
Okay, let me point out the fatal flaw in Trump's logic. He says, quote unquote, this war could go on for years. And he's right. But the way in which he wants to end it would ensure that this goes on for even more years than necessary. The way to show Vladimir Putin that the war is over in a sustainable way is to inflict maximum pain or to give Ukraine security guarantees. Like if we admitted them in NATO, no one would be complaining because then Russia could never reinvade, the war would be over. But the problem is, Vladimir Putin is a bad faith actor who will leap at the first chance to reinvade after he rearms. So what happens when we give them a quote-unquote peace deal that is just a Russian wish list? Like, hey, Ukraine, you can never join NATO. That's what it says. This peace deal says Ukraine, in their constitution, will never be allowed to join NATO. This peace deal says Ukraine has to also change their constitution to put a cap on their army. It says that Ukraine has to give up a lot of territory. So essentially, Russia's getting this goodie bag of concessions. Russia makes no concessions. Russia gets to spend the next few years rearming and getting ready to reinvade. And then what do you know? We're in 2029. We're under the next administration. Vladimir Putin placated Trump, rubbed his belly. Everybody's happy. And then Putin reinvades again. Then he reinvades a neighboring country, a NATO country. Then we're in World War III. This is not some thing that I'm making up. Vladimir Putin will continue to reinvade as he has. Then Trump gets asked, what kind of concessions will the Russians have to make? This one makes my head want to explode. Trump says their concession is that they have to stop fighting. What do you mean? Their concession is that they stop the invasion? Ukraine's concession is that they have to give up Kherson, the Zaporizhia region. They have to give up 6 other regions, really important strips of land. They have to put a cap on their military and never join NATO. Of course, this is a Russian wish list when the Russians helped craft it.
I believe next week in Moscow.
Next week in Moscow?
I think so, yes.
What kinds of concessions are the Russians going to have to make?
Well, they're making concessions. Their big concession is they stop fighting and they don't take any more land. Again, it's a war that would have never happened if I was president.
I hate this. Now he goes down the chain of, his dialogue tree. This never would have happened. It never would have happened. Not fighting anymore is not a concession. That's not a concession. That is like a necessary for the war to end. A concession is something that happens after the necessary cease firing. The concession isn't the cease firing in and of itself. Now, here's a 28-point peace plan.
Europe really wants to see it end if possible.
There were a lot of Republicans who felt that the first plan, the first 28-point plan, was too favorable to Russia. Have you changed
Well,
that?
that was just a map. All that was is a map. That was not a plan. It was a concept. And from there, they've taken each one of the 28 points, and then you get down to 22 points. A lot of them we solved, and actually very favorably solved. So we'll see how.
We can't let this shit get normalized. The media is going to try to normalize and forget about this Russian phone call. They're going to move on to something else while the Epstein files, the Russian phone calls, the economy dies in the background. But we will not let that happen. Every single day, we will continue to cover this phone call because, like, just read this headline that popped up while I was listening to this. Trump envoy Witkoff coached Russians on how to praise Donald Trump. A leaked call reveals. We've got Trump admin officials coaching the Russians on how to manipulate Donald Trump. And then when Trump gets asked about it, he gaslights. In this clip, he gets asked, do you think that Ukraine was being asked to give too much land back to Russia? Which the clear answer is yes. Listen, if you want to end the war and Ukraine has to make small concessions, but they get long-term security guarantees, there's a conversation to be had, and the Ukrainians have been game to have that conversation. Zelensky's been willing to have that conversation, but that's not what this is. This is a Russian wish list disguised as a peace plan. This Russian wish list would lead to more long-term death for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that Putin will use this as an emboldening technique. Also, other countries are eyeing this to see what's happening. Like China is eyeing this to see, will the United States just give up or will they continue to fight? Because if they give up, then that means China can just invade Taiwan, kill people there. The U.S. won't step in. We gave up with Ukraine.
Do you think that Ukraine was being asked to give too much land back to Russia? I know at one point you said they shouldn't have to give any back.
It's really up. Look, the way it's going, if you look, it's just moving in one direction. So eventually that's land that over the next couple of months might be gotten by Russia anyway. So do you want to fight and lose another 50, 60,000 people? Or do you want to do something now? In some cases, the land is going in the other direction. So,
God, what a dumbass. It's not even about fighting and losing 50,000 people. That's horrific. But it's about not playing your hand and signaling to Putin that you're willing to give up. Because when you signal to Putin that any minute now the United States just wants to give up, we're just tired, we're right about to give up, you're signaling that Putin should keep going, keep extending the war, because the U.S. is about to give up and pull out. If rather you signal strength to Putin that, hey, we're not close to giving up, we will double down, we will send more weapons, we will continue to squeeze you, then Putin will be like, oh shit. I mean, the only language Putin speaks is strength. Instead, he's manipulating Donald Trump's advisors, therefore manipulating Donald Trump. Donald Trump is being manipulated to such an extent that he already took the pro-Russia position, but he's just blindly allowing Russia to run through Ukraine, and it's incredibly despicable. The people in Ukraine have held the line for years, and now, when Trump gets asked, what's the next step, he answers,
it's very, very sad because so many people are being killed.
What's the next step?
They're going to keep talking. They're talking to Russia now. Steve Witkoff is going over, maybe with Jared. I'm not sure about Jared going.
Jared Kushner, why would he be involved? At the end of the day, Donald Trump's strategy has been flawed from the get-go, which has poisoned the entire ability to end the war in a meaningful way. If Donald Trump would have actually done his strongman thing that he's been trying to do with other countries, but he did it towards Russia, like he postured towards them, he said, we're going to inflict maximum damage via tariff, we're going to put sanctions on all of the secondary countries around you, we're going to make sure you can't trade with anybody, we're going to give double the weapons to Ukraine, double the aid to Ukraine, and we're never going to back down until you guys back down first. That would actually send a long-term message to Putin that, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't invade countries, maybe it won't end well for me. But what we've done instead is embolden Putin. We've been like, I think we're just 1 week away from giving up Vladimir Putin. I really do think it's time to give up. And when we say that, we're signaling that he can just continue to do this. Okay, it really pisses me off. And it pisses me off doubly so that we then get headlines about Donald Trump just being a straight-up traitor. I mean, Steve Witkoff has been exposed, reads this article. U.S. President's special envoy has demonstrated a lack of expertise after a leaked Kremlin call revealing him coaching a top Putin aide. Donald Trump arrived in office as the dealmaker-in-chief. He was delighted in choosing unconventional figures. who knew a lot about New York real estate. It meant Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were not constrained by decades of bloody stalemates in Gaza. They talked, but Mr. Witkoff's lack of experience may have now been badly exposed in the leak of an extraordinary phone call with a senior Kremlin official. Steve Witkoff says, "Hi, Yuri." Yuri says, "Yeah, Steve, hi, how are you?" Steve, "Good, Yuri, how you doing?" Yuri, "I am okay. Congratulations, my friend." They're talking about the Gaza deal right now. Steve says, "Thank you." Yuri says, you made a great job, just a great job. Thank you so much. Thank you. Read this. Mr. Witkoff's apparent coaching of Yuri, Vladimir Putin's top foreign policy aide, is deeply embarrassing. He offers advice for Putin's call with the U.S. president and goes on to suggest that the Russian president propose a similar deal for Ukraine as the one that ended fighting in Gaza. Quote, "I told the president that the Russian Federation always wanted a peace deal," Witkoff said. "That's my belief. I told the president I believe that." So this dude is just way behind. Let me run the foreign policy division. I would be a better special envoy. I at least understand part of the psychology behind Vladimir Putin, most of it. Was he just saying that for the benefit of Mr. Yushikov? A bit of diplomatic buttering up? Or does he really believe that? I think he really believes it, but this article is asking the questions. Perhaps the most damning of all, he says it might be a good idea for Putin to talk with Trump before a meeting with Zelensky. At the time, the American president's stance on Putin had been hardening. After that phone call, Trump announced he would soon be meeting the Russian president in Budapest. He also cooled on the idea of sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. A second call obtained by Bloomberg goes to show just how much the Russian side sees an opportunity for mischief. So they were passing their positions along to the Americans without actually committing to anything. They were manipulating us. Not us in particular, they were manipulating our idiotic leaders, Steve Witkoff and Trump. We don't know whether Mr. Trump's special envoy was just flattering the Russian officials, but I'm pretty sure he's just an idiot who is easily manipulated. I'm going to leave it there. If you appreciate these videos, drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.